Right now. Okay. So we are recording right now, and Katie just started talking about good stuff. And so I'm like, stop talking. So we are now talking. And so we were talking about what to share. And I don't even know how long, I think it was back in May. Back in May, you and I had a conversation, and it's come up a lot with a lot of different people. And I don't know if it is I wouldn't call it a midlife crisis. I don't think it's a crisis of like, who am I? And like this, I don't know who I am anymore. I think it's like a rediscovery, like a 2.0 for people's lives. It's like,
Yeah.
who am I becoming? Who do I
Yep.
want to be? And most of us, like you and I have talked about, no people haven't even slowed down to ask the question. Right. So I'll just kind of set
Right.
that as the premise of that's where we were back in May, and you were making some decisions in life. And you were like, "Hey, let's talk
Hmm.
about this. I love to jam with you because you ask great questions, have had good insight." So that's what led us to that conversation. What's now leading us to this conversation. And I said, "Katie, what you have to share about like this process you're going through is super cool." And then you were just saying, "Well, I think what would be valuable is like if I started it." I'm like, "Stop talking." Okay, ready, go. Okay, now
Sometimes,
I want you to lead where you think that is what was valuable to you, not what I think is valuable, but what you think is valuable because it was valuable to you.
yeah. So that conversation, May, I did reach out to you because I do love jamming with you, and we always get out the whiteboard and talk and brainstorm, and I love that. I love those sessions. I love digging in and thinking critically, and you do ask really great questions. You are never one as a coach and as a friend to sort of say, well, I hear where you are, and this is where I think you should go. You ask questions that make me dive deeper, and that is always really, really valuable to me. And so in that conversation in May, we had gotten out the whiteboard, and I think you asked me, I was evaluating my course, my future course in life, and where just trying to inform my decision. And you said, well, I think you said, what is your
Mhm.
purpose? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And so you started to explain it, and I said, oh, I think what you're asking me is, what's my true north? Like, what's my I think about that in my direction of a compass. And you're like, yeah, okay, let's roll with that. What's your true north? And so then we started, mapping that out on the whiteboard. But I think what we
Yeah.
started talking about before we were recording just now is what led me to that process. And I don't think I really started thinking about what my true north was, or what my like life compass was, until I was about
Mm.
38 years old. And at that point in time, my background's in law enforcement. Since I was in second grade, the only thing I ever wanted to do was be in law enforcement, and I blame it on Robert Stack and
Oh,
Unsolved Mysteries every Wednesday at
yeah, like
7
that show, like
when I was a
that's
kid.
the TV shows that creep me out when I didn't go to sleep after that. It was like the covers up to here, my eyeballs like doing this.
That's what Dustin says too, like, just the sound of the music leading into, Unsolved Mysteries, he's like, "I'm gonna get night terrors, I can't watch this." But for me, it just I don't know, I was always really, driven to do something that allowed me to investigate and pull pieces together and solve problems. So, I was in law enforcement. I worked at a state agency for 18 years and promoted up and was in an administrative position overseeing a lot of really important things. And I feel comfortable in saying I was really good at my job. I had done all the things that I wanted to do in terms of going into law enforcement, working homicides, solving crimes, putting all those pieces together, and bringing solutions to problems, not only on a case basis, but then, organizationally, and helping to fix systems and processes on behalf of crime victims. And so I found a lot of satisfaction in that, but I also felt like I was really overwhelmed and overworked and
Yeah.
underappreciated. And so, in 2019, I was in a class. It was called the Emerging Leaders, or I'm sorry, the Law Enforcement Leadership Academy, LELA, which was a command school designed specifically for law enforcement administrators, but it was a course that I went through for a year to get my certified public
Mhm.
manager credential. So I was in a room with a lot of other law enforcement leaders, and one of the sections that we had, and this is my book from my
Oh my
CPM
gosh.
certification. But one of the segments that we did was one on building resiliency and surviving secondary trauma, and that's something that unfortunately I have a lot of experience with. But one of the exercises that we went through was one called mapping
Okay.
your resilience. And it basically was an exercise where I can pull this out and kind of show you, but it's like
Oh,
this
got it. I
little
like it. Yeah.
show and tell here. So basically, what it was an exercise that allowed you to visually assess your level of satisfaction in several areas of your life compared to the time and energy that you were
Mhm.
putting into those things. So I had been feeling very like out of balance in terms of my work and my life and um, my level of satisfaction. But I think that this particular exercise really solidified for me a lot of the things that I was feeling internally, but didn't really know what to do with. And so that exercise demonstrated for me in a visual way, yeah, I'm putting so much time and energy into my job, but my level of satisfaction there is
Mhm.
not where it should be compared to that
Yeah.
amount of time and energy. Um, Conversely, I was putting as much time and energy as I possibly could into my family and my children and the things that are important to me, being outside, my family, my friends. But those areas of my life had lower levels of satisfaction, and I just didn't have the ability to dedicate as much time and energy to those things. So, and I pulled this out this morning in just to before our meeting kind of look this over again. And after this exercise, I wrote at the bottom of this page, why in the hell are you not putting more time and attention and effort into the domains of your life that bring
Mm.
you joy and happiness?
Yeah.
Make the change. Um, so that was one really important piece of, I think, as you
Yeah.
say, like 2.0, rediscovering who you are and where you are in life and just doing that sort of systems check um, so that you can diagnose and make the changes that are necessary. Also in 2019, I had the opportunity to go through Leadership Kansas, and I was with 39 other leaders, and we toured the state and got to see some really incredible things in different parts of our state, things that are going well, challenges, opportunities for growth and advancement. And one of the ladies, so I knew that I was in a place where I was out of balance, but I didn't know how
Yeah.
to make the change. And one of the ladies that was in my class had been recruited and hired in to a big corporation in Kansas as their like chief IT security person. She does a lot of really cool stuff that I can't
Yeah.
pretend to understand. Um, but they had her traveling and being away from her family, her daughter that had an illness. And she just, had a conversation with her company and said, this is not really what I signed up for. And they said, well, this is what the call is, and this is what the demand is right now. And she said, you know,
Yeah.
she left.
Right.
Like she quit her job without having a next thing to go to. And I just remember riding the bus with her one day and having a conversation about that and the amount of courage that that took. And just being able to see somebody else embrace that recognition that they needed to make a change and then having the courage to do it and the confidence that they had the skills to land on their feet and the faith that the right thing would come along. So those two things in 2019 were really impactful for me, and just starting to process and think about what's important to me and how do I align that with where I'm going professionally or the future of my life. And so that's kind of where this whole concept of
Yeah.
my true north started to come from, and really processing and diving deep into myself and thinking critically about what's important, and then how do I establish a plan to make the changes that are necessary to equalize that time and energy and satisfaction, your
Right.
inputs and your outputs.
Yeah, and that is a perfect representation, I think, probably of a lot of people. And I don't know, I won't try to stick to a specific age, but I would say people that are probably heading into their mid 30s into their mid 40 range, I think, and what people used to refer, like I said before, as a midlife crisis. And I think now it's being more defined as the 2.0. I think the word crisis
Yeah.
makes us feel out of control. I think 2.0 means there's enhancements and something better is coming, right? And so,
Yeah. It's like midlife
yeah, midlife
opportunity rather
opportunity.
than
How do I get to
crisis.
rewrite what I'm doing? What I find is that most people, because they're not clear on what they want to rewrite, not to rewrite, but to write their new opportunity, their new job description, their new parent description, their new life description for the rest of their life. What they do is they talk about all the reasons why they can't do things. So they'll say, well, man, I got to
Right.
make that paycheck, or I got to do this or that. So there's always all these excuses. And as a friend, I usually just like, I do like, right. But then as a coach, and that's why you and I jive together, because as a coach, I'm like, well, do you want my coaching? Do you want questions, or you just want me to stare at you? Which do you want? And I would say that most people would like to make a change, like they like the idea of 2.0, but they're unwilling to commit to 2.0. And then what it takes, the mental work, the planning, the readjusting things in life. I've had people sell their houses
Yeah.
because they lived in a very beautiful house. I mean, Evie and I did that. So there was,
Yep.
people have lived in these very nice houses, and what they've done is they readjusted their house, their living. They sold their cars, downsized their car to a no car payment, so that way they could build that 2.0 without the pressure of money, right? And then people that are listening to this right now, they'll always tell me, like, you don't know my story. Like, you don't know my story this, my story that. And I'm like, listen to me. I am telling you, I have listened and read to so many books, so many podcasts, have helped so many different people. Like, I could probably pull your story out of my pocket, not your story, but I can pull your story. And then if you want me to, and this is, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but when people complain to me about something, I've got a story in my pocket that trumps their troubles, right? For perspective. And when we read and listen to things, it gives us a new perspective on what we think are our troubles, right? So, like, man,
Yeah.
search for meaning by Viktor Frankl. People are like, oh, my life is this and that. I'm like, yeah. So read this book. This dude was in the concentration camps. People all around him were dying. The first day in the concentration camps, his wife and his kids were all murdered. Okay, so now do you want to tell me about what's going on? Like, you blew a tire, and the potholes in the city suck. You want to have that conversation again? Right? So what I do think, one thing for sure, people lack perspective on a different reality than the one that they are currently living. So I do believe that what we watch, listen to, read, and who we hang out with, and the stories that inspire us will make an impact in our future to rewrite our future. But what people typically do is they medicate their current life through the people they talk to, alcohol, drugs, movies, sitcoms. I might offend some people here. Fantasy football league, right? So there's. Are you on? Are you doing fantasy football? Are you doing that, Katie?
No,
Right,
but
right,
I'm a
right.
huge
So,
football fan,
so
but
I
I'm
do
not
believe that
fantasy football.
people like, and again, I don't want to put people in a position where they feel less than for not like, oh, I'm going to go discover my vision and purpose in life, like this esoteric kind of thought process. What I want to do is empower people to say, if you truly want something different, it is possible to change, but you have to change the way
Yes.
you think about how you think. That's what all the garbage I said.
Right.
those words sum it up, right? But all those words kind of
Yeah.
build into that, right? And so with you talking
Yes.
about your true north, and we sat down and we talked about and went through like an exercise, like a true north where I drew this thing. And I don't know if you want me to try to share my screen and throw it up there, or if you just want to like talk about what we discovered, because you said I've been, and then I think you've kind of realized this is almost you became aware of something you didn't want in 2000, let's say 2019. You wrote yourself something back then that said, why aren't you making the change more or less? Then there's this process of just doing, going down the road without actually knowing, okay, what exactly am I doing or heading to? And then at some point in time,
Mhm.
you and I get together and we have a bigger conversation. And I'll always tell people this: you're clear for now, right? Because
Mhm.
in 5 years you may not be clear because you may discover new things about yourself or new opportunities may come along the line. Is that fair? So
Yeah, absolutely. But I think but that's important is just like you and I think that's where I was in 2019 before I went through this exercise that I had that feeling that there was more for me. Um, but I sort of was like at an impasse in terms of what to do and
mm,
how to move forward, how to move
like a
beyond my
strategy.
circumstance. And yeah, like what's your strategy? And so I think, the true north for me when you were saying, what's your purpose? And I was like, I don't understand what you're asking me. And then you explained, and I was like, oh, my true north. And so for me, if I could just
Yeah.
share an analogy, like, I'm an outdoors person. I love hunting, fishing, hiking, the outdoors bring me joy. So we're outside doing things every weekend. And so in my mind, I think about true north as if I'm out in the middle of nowhere, like I'm hiking in this really rough terrain and there's, nothing, no landmarks around me. I feel like I'm lost. I don't know which direction to go. What is it that you do? People in that situation, they pull out a compass and they read it and figure out which direction is north. And then using true north, they're able to navigate back to a landmark, a road, something that helps them navigate
Mm-hmm.
beyond their current
Mm-hmm.
situation of being stuck. And so for me, it was that process of diagnosing and understanding what was important to me. And like you mentioned, I was one of those people that after 2019, I was like, okay, I've got to make some changes. And I downsized my house because I recognized and understood the things that were more important to me than investing everything I had
Mm-hmm.
into a job, and started to make those changes. And one of, so I have kind of like three life mottos, but one I think is really relevant here, is like, have you ever heard, wish in one hand, spit
Yes,
in
I
the
have. I
other?
can't. Yeah, I've heard it like a long time ago, but yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think that that's relevant because if you know that you're in a situation that I wish that my circumstances were different. I wish that whatever, fill in the blank. I wish that I was better at golfing.
Yeah.
I am not good at golfing. But I also recognize that I can't be good at golfing when I pull my clubs out
Yes.
and go once a year. If I want to be good at golfing, I have to establish a plan. And, and part of that plan, it's like, have you ever
Yes.
heard of SMART
Mm-hmm.
goals? Yes. So specific, measurable, attainable,
Yeah.
relevant, and time bound. You put together a plan that with goals that are achievable to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. So if I want to be a good golfer, that means that I've got to establish some smart goals and start executing
Right.
against that plan. And so wish in one hand, spit in the other is kind of like, oh, you can which hand
Right.
fills up first? Like all of your wishes, wants, desires, you can put that in one hand, but if you're not taking the steps necessary to make that an actionable plan to get from where you are to where you wish that you were, you're going to fill up the hand
Right.
with spit first. And so I think that was a big part of my
Yeah.
evolution as well, is just what's my true north? What are the things that are important to me? And then what changes do I need to start making in my life so that I can get to
Okay.
where I want
And
to
so
be?
those changes, I think that's where, again, we got to that whiteboard. And I think walking through that, when we walked through that, it was you assessing your core values, like your virtues, your freedom, your finance. And so I walked you through a process that helped you to define. So people like, I don't know what freedom means to me. I don't know where I want to be with my finances. I don't know what I value, right? Because what we tend to do is we just tend to drift, right? We become drifters in this life until we're 65, 70 years old, right? Les Brown says that, I heard him quote this. He said, we're born, we're born when we're, I think he said like 21, and then we die physically when we're like 25, and or sorry, we die spiritually when we're 25 and physically when we're 75, right? And what he means is that we get into the workforce and we tend to lose like all the hopes and dreams that we have because we just start to acclimate to whatever somebody else's hopes and dreams are for their life. And I always tell people, like, if you're helping somebody else either build a business or their hopes and dreams, guess what? Guess what they have planned for you? Not much, right? Because it's about their hopes and dreams, right?
Right.
And so when we look
Right.
at the process of you honing down and trying to discover what your true north was, we drew a line that went straight up and then like this true north, like a compass. And then we drew some stuff on the left and then there was some stuff on the right. So walk me through that process a little bit. And I don't know if you need that screenshot up there to share my screen or okay,
Yeah,
so
you can
so
do that.
Katie and I are going to do something new on this Blanco podcast. Is we're going to share a picture that I don't know how to do this. So let's see what happens. Okay, got that up, and where is it? Screen share. All right, so that's our
Yep.
scribble board, otherwise known as our board. So I want you to go through it from your memory. What do you remember about this whiteboard?
So, just you were asking. So, this conversation again came about when I was kind of at a juncture of making a decision about my path forward. So, I left the KBI in 2020. Had a couple of job jobs that you know they weren't good fits for me, but I still learned a lot and was able to start my own business. And so at the point in time where you and I had this meeting, I had been approached for somebody to acquire my business and for
Mhm.
me to move in with them. And so I was going through the process of trying to, I said, Anthony, just can we get together and brainstorm because I just need that. I need that critical thinking. I need your questions, our thought storming. And so you were saying, well, what is your purpose? What are the things that are important to you? And this is where I said, oh, my true north. Okay, so the things that are important to me that I'm just not willing to sacrifice on are first and foremost my integrity. Just because I retired my badge doesn't mean I retired the importance of my integrity to me um, at the core of who I am and everything that I choose to say yes to going forward. So that's one thing that is and will always be really, really important to me. Um, Again, a lesson that I learned just in my time both at the KBI and since is I really value my freedom. I value structure, so it's not that I'm unwilling to work in an organization as a subordinate. I certainly am willing to do that. I have done it. I'm doing it now. But I really value my individual freedom in terms of my time and where I invest my God-given talents to make an impact on people. If I am doing something where don't feel like I have that freedom to make decisions and make an impact on people's lives in a positive way, I sort of feel
Mhm.
like I'm in prison. And I just don't, nobody likes that feeling. Another thing that we had talked about and I identified as something that's just a core value to me is I've always had a servant's heart. I think that that is a calling, and something that I felt since watching Unsolved Mysteries in second grade. Like I felt called to serve. And so, and you mentioned just being open to
Mhm.
your evolution. The only career goal I've ever had for myself, I established when I was in sixth grade, and it was I want to be a KBI agent. I was hired as an agent at 24 years old, so I checked that box, and I never defined quote unquote a career goal beyond that, but I worked really hard and made sure that I was serving and in fulfillment of my purpose and my passion, and took on a lot of different assignments, and had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. And through that evolution, I realized that I like serving in a way that I can have more broad impact. So if I work a crime scene or I work a homicide investigation, I certainly have an impact on the lives of people that have been negatively impacted by that particular violent crime. And I approach that and interact with those people in a way that I want to have a positive impact and help them navigate the most
Mhm.
difficult time of their life. That's really valuable. But for me, I find more, um, satisfaction. I think I'm better able to apply my gifts when I'm able to work in a manner that I bring a whole bunch of people together in a collaborative way and make systematic cultural changes that have a positive, lasting impact on people that, I'll never know the number of, I'll never see the faces of, I'll never interact with on a personal level. And so serving in that way is really what where I call it the fire in my belly. That's my
Yeah.
passion and my purpose. So helping to impact lasting change through law, policy, procedures, things of that nature. And then I think these were your words, be an amplifier of a noble cause, and the multiplier. So from one, impacting one family, for example, in a homicide investigation versus impacting the lives of many crime victims by leading the sexual assault kit initiative and making changes in systems and processes and just the culture of how society and the criminal justice system respond to and approach sexual violence. So, making a difference in the lives of
Yeah.
lots of victims. Um, and then the value, I think, that was a conversation of um, me being able to control the value in terms of what opportunities I say yes to and what
Mhm.
opportunities I decline, because it will always be really important to me to say yes to opportunities that align with my core values, my integrity,
Mhm.
my true north, um, and respectfully decline opportunities that don't align with me or the
Mhm.
direction that I'm going. And so I think that brings us back up to
Mhm.
the top of the board that's squared. Um, One of the goals that I had identified for myself was financial freedom. And to me, that means, I've always kind of joked like someday I'm going to live on a land with a moat
Yes.
around my house in the middle of nowhere. And but being owning land and being in the country and being outside and doing the things that bring me joy and happiness, that's always been a goal of mine. And so, in order to achieve that, you have to have some level of
Mhm.
financial freedom. And then, traveling, making memories, I've always been one that I value memories over things. Um, so that is sort of the legacy that I want to leave to my children is, you know, making those memories. And in order to make those memories through travel and, doing whatever, you have to have a certain degree of financial
Right.
freedom to be able to do that. Um, so that was kind of an overview of the
Yeah.
rundown on
Yeah.
True
And
North.
the big thing, let's see. Oh, notes book,
Oh, yep.
the book 10x is easier than 2x. And then passion, purpose,
Yeah.
service, right? So that's what I think you ended up on. And
Yeah.
then this is the alignment of the true north. And
Yes. And so you see like passion, purpose, service, yes versus no to my goal. So as I'm evaluating an opportunity, whether it be a career opportunity, an opportunity to work with a client, I now am better able, since I went through this sort of evolution in this process, and now I better understand my true north and the things that are important to me. I'm better able to evaluate every opportunity against
mhm,
my true north and make sure that I am only saying yes to opportunities that align with me and help me pursue my
right.
dreams and my passions. And then can you go back down to the Oh, I think it was just, is that aligned with
Mhm.
your true north? Yeah.
And so when we look, and so when we say aligned or a line, is that we have true north up here,
Mhm.
but then we have a line, so alignment. And then what we are illustrating over here is the 0 represents opportunities. So it's not a 0, it's an O. So these
Yep.
represent opportunities. So what Katie was just talking about was when we know where we're at with these things, okay, all over here, and going through a systematic process to define what we value most in life, right? Then we understand that as we're evaluating opportunities, whether it's the current opportunity that somebody is in or opportunities that get put in front of them, is that, and I told Katie this, like, Katie, you're so cool. Like, I like Katie. She's got land, and she's like, "Hey, let's go shoot some guns." And my kids keep on asking, "When do we get to go to Katie's and shoot guns?" Right?
Sunday.
Like
We're
that's
going
and so
Sunday.
Katie's cool to hang out with, right? So when we're looking at this line and the opportunities, is that, and because Katie is cool, is that these opportunities come here, and this is the evaluation process. Is you look at where you're currently at in your alignment, you go back to this left side, and you say, does this opportunity allow me to do these things, whatever your things are, right? And then you get to decide. So you don't.
Mhm.
I always tell everybody, like, you're not making the decision when the opportunity is presented. You've already made the decision and understanding what your true north and your freedom, your finances and fulfillment are. So you've already made the decision, like with how you're going to live life. The opportunity has to prove itself to you that it matches with your life alignment,
Yes.
not the other way around. But the way that we've been trained and
Right.
educated is that we have to mold ourselves to the business. And that is for me, I don't want to get on a big, what do you call it? Box. What are they? Soapbox. There you go.
Soapbox?
I don't want to get on a
Soapbox.
soapbox, but man, like, we've been sold a bill of goods. Like, we're all supposed to go work for somebody else and become drones. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that there is a different way to look at opportunities, because people a lot of times will pay you what they can get away with. They will not pay you what you're worth. And so what we do is we
Right.
sell portions of our freedom, finances, and fulfillment in order to fit into their mold. And I'm saying we don't have to do that when you're so concrete on what you want. Now, I'm not saying that you leave your job tomorrow, or, and when I say you, I'm not talking to Katie, I'm talking to the audience in general, is I'm not saying leave your job tomorrow, but I am saying make a plan if that's something that you want to do, right? Make a plan and make it plain. That's how you do it. And you do it through doing this kind of evaluation and understanding that you've already made the decision, this opportunity doesn't work. Then what I shared with Katie is, but then there's opportunities that come and they do align with you for a time period. Me personally, I've had lots of wonderful places that I've worked that have
Mhm.
taught me lots of wonderful things, and they've come into
Yep.
alignment. But then at some point in time, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, at some point in time, whether it's a new discovery in myself on a new vision for my life, or maybe the business or company has changed, or maybe it's a new passion I want to pursue, the alignment doesn't work. It does not make the company good or bad. It just makes it no longer aligned on our way to our true north. Does that sound fair?
Right, and I think that yes, and, you know, the example that I described about my friend in Leadership, Kansas, that left her job just, you know, on a wing and a prayer, and having the courage to do that, the courage to recognize that when she accepted that opportunity with that big corporation, it was in alignment with where she was at the time. But the corporation started to go a different direction because that was what was important for them in the pursuit of their goals. But it pulled away from aligning with her
Right.
true north. And so she had the courage to recognize that and to leave because it no longer aligned with her. And she had the confidence in herself to know that there was going to be another opportunity that came along that did align with her. And I've had that experience, you know, several times in different assignments at the KBI, or different, you know, assignments or jobs that I've had since leaving my law enforcement career in pursuit of these things, you know, better work life balance. And to your point, it doesn't make any of those companies or the people that, you know, we come in contact with, good or bad. There were some really, really challenging times for me in particularly 2020, 2021, not related to COVID. Um, but and it was like there were times where I felt like I'd made a mistake in leaving my 18-year career. And but I just challenged myself to say, you know, asking God, like, what is the lesson that you're calling
Yeah.
me to learn today? And that made me find value and derive purpose, I think, out of those challenges in every single day. And when I sort of like reframed that and changed the way that I was reacting to those challenges, I then saw that challenge as an opportunity to learn and make me better, to position me for the future. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. Jeremiah 29:11 is my absolute favorite Bible verse. For I know the plans I have for you. And it just gave me, it helped me look at that situation and say, what can I learn? I have faith that I am on the right path, but what can I learn that helps me
Mhm.
be more successful in the future? And just sort of reframing that. Framing is a helpful
Yeah.
and really powerful
Yeah.
tool.
Framing that, go back to Benjamin Hardy, right? Yeah.
Hardy. Oh, yeah. I heard him talk about that in a podcast you shared with me, and I was
Yeah.
like, I know all
Reframing,
about
which is
that. Yeah.
that's a whole nother episode, right? And then forever was like looking
Yeah.
at the other chicken scratch on the other side of the board. Those were We had a very long conversation when we were going through this. It was probably, I think it was like 3 hours. And so the majority, like
Yeah.
there was like some time we were just catching up personally. And then there was the True North conversation, which took the longest portion. And then I took Katie through different ways to think about value, like a value creation, like how to value ourselves, which like I want to hit that.
Mhm.
And then I showed different ways to to think about income, right? And so, anyways, those are really two other different videos, so we won't get into those today. But what I do want to hit is going through this. So when we're talking about the value or the true north, and for you becoming clear on what that is, you and I actually had, because I believe this is that people don't understand and know how to derive at their current economic value. Okay. I believe that every human is invaluable. Every human is valuable, right? Katie's like, I worked for the KBI crimes. No, not all humans are valuable, right? There's always that filter. But
There's always
yeah,
things you
that's
think
right.
and
That's
don't
right.
say.
Katie's like, blink, blink. But In general, all humans, right, carry this very valuable essence. So it's I always call it, it's your personal value, which is your value that you create just for you showing up in the world and being born. And then there is your economic value. And what I will tell you is that there's a ton of employees out there right now, or even maybe some entrepreneurs that want to get paid more, but they're not doing anything to increase their value. On the other side, I have entrepreneurs and people like you, or even people that are entrepreneurs that are working. They want to work their way up into a corporation, but they are selling themselves short. So they don't understand how to articulate their own value to themselves. And so if we don't
Mhm.
understand how to articulate our own value, then how in the world can we go into a negotiation, whether we're doing it as a entrepreneur to fight for what we want and the impact that we want to make with whatever business it is, or whether we're trying to get a raise or where we're trying to grow up into a manager, director, C-suite position, but we don't understand how to arrive at that level of value economically, right? So through this process,
Mhm.
we talked a little bit about that at the end too, because you were saying, "Hey, how do I evaluate this opportunity?" That's when we went through all the
Yeah.
the true north, right? But then part of that opportunity is, well, how do I understand the economic value? Because if I do this, what's the trade-off for that, right? And so walk me through that if you remember that portion of the conversation.
Ooh. So I think, can you pull the board
Yeah.
back up a little bit?
I can. I am now a screen share master on this
Sharing
thing.
Pro.
All right.
So you want me to walk you through what now
Um,
specifically? How, just how we were getting
value. So
to value?
when people, and I want you to, like you were asking me, there's an opportunity that came up, the opportunity that you took, and you said, how do I evaluate this? How do I know if I should take it or not take it? And first, what we had to do is you had to come to a conclusion of what your economic value was to just the world, right? To the
Mhm.
industry that you are in. And once you arrived at that economic value, you then had to go position yourself with the organization that you're with, and go confidently, right? And I do believe that you told
Mhm.
me that that was uncomfortable for you to go with a more or less a counter offer, because you had gone through a process to understand that your economic value wasn't actually A, it was actually L.
Yes, and so for me, it actually, it wasn't a counteroffer. It was a
There you go.
respectful
Yeah.
declination, because and I, I approached that conversation. It was uncomfortable, but I will tell you, after having visited with you and the questions that you asked and having worked through this exercise, I was more confident and comfortable in approaching that conversation than I ever have been in similar conversations in the past. So there's a lot of value to this, and I think, I just approached that from saying, like, I'm very appreciative of the interest and in the offer that I've been given. Um, but I want you to know that I've really done a lot of work in contemplating that, and in evaluating, what are the things that are important to me and how does this opportunity align? And so it aligned on all the things except for my value, and how much closer that value got me to what I perceive to be, at this point in my life, financial freedom and
Yeah.
what I think is possible. And so that then led to, opening the door, and they came back and said, We're not ready to be done yet." So it ended up working out, and I am so pleased and happy with my decision because it aligns on
Yeah.
all the things that are important to me. But we talk about this concept of true north and like what that looks like to me, but I think I wonder if listeners say, okay, I understand that. It's kind of like the
Yeah.
wish in one hand, spit in the other. Like, I understand that that's an important concept, but how do I go through
Mhm.
that exercise? And how do I determine and identify those things that are my important to me at my core. And I think that this mapping your resilience, this
Yeah.
particular exercise, I think that that might be a helpful tool to people as they say, okay, I want to better understand my true north,
Yeah.
but how do I do that? And I think this mapping your resilience is a really good place
Yeah.
for people to start. Um, and also, you mentioned something about having the confidence in yourself. That was also sort of a separate exercise. Like when I wrapped my mind around, okay, I now can visually see what I've been feeling, that I'm out of balance with work and life. So I want to make a change. Um, I see this colleague, friend of mine who has had the courage and the confidence in herself to make that change. So how do I get there? And and I think I really started to sell myself short because my degree is in criminal justice. I've been at the KBI since I was 20 years old. Like, so I was saying, nobody else is going to
Mm.
want me. Like, my experience, my resume is only in law enforcement. And so it really was then, again, being introspective and sort of taking a step back and saying, what are the transferable skills
Mhm.
that I have that are
Yes.
valuable to any industry? And thinking about, and then, those transferable skills. I'm a good written and
Mhm.
oral communicator. I'm a strategic
Mhm.
person. I analyze things very well. I work well with teams. Um, all of those different things that are transferable skills. I'm a visionary leader. What
So
else do you
the
have in
this
there?
bottom one was implementation. For anybody that can't read
Oh,
my
yep.
hieroglyphics down there. So this first stair was implementation. This second stair is unification. The third stair is communication, and the fourth stair is vision. And so when Katie and I were talking, and this is for everybody in general. And again, this is from Myron Golden, so I always give him shout outs for anybody that I learned something from. And then I sent Katie down a path of Myron Golden videos. Uh, yes.
I love
So
it.
when Myron communicated this to me and I got it, like I even had to make some changes in my life because what we do is that the implementation phase. So if we're doing anything as a either as an entrepreneur or we're doing anything as a employee, if we are doing more of the implementing than anybody else, then that is the lowest value on that market segment. Now you may be making decent money, but I'm saying, and according to your industry, but it may not be maximizing your true value, right? And so that
Mhm. Because you're
that's right.
implementing somebody
That's right.
else's vision. You're like the worker
Right.
bee
That's
instead of
right.
the queen
And
bee.
so then when you look at that second step, which is unification, unification means that you can lead teams, right? And so that's great, but you'll still be capped at the amount of value. Now, what you see is that dotted line, and this is where Katie, because just the way that Katie was communicating with me and what she's done and the history, and I've done this and this and this and this and this, and I'm a lobbyist and like all these amazing things she's done. I'm like, Katie, I'm like, you're here. I'm like, you're here about this dotted line. This is communication and vision. This is what you do like every single day. This is what you're doing is you're communicating to people a vision of something of impact. That's where you're at. And so you have to understand that the what you do is extremely economically valuable, right?
Valuable. So don't sell yourself short. Don't accept an opportunity. If you're doing these things on this stage of the stairs, don't accept an opportunity that's going to put you back down at this stage financially or this stage as an implementer when what you're doing now and what you're really, really good at is the communication and the
Yeah, that's right.
visionary
And so,
part.
and then you can learn how to delegate those things because and I'll say this too. This isn't with an expectation that everybody is going to want to increase their communication and vision skills because that's a lot of work and takes a lot of passion, a lot of reading, a lot of listening, a lot of being coachable, a lot of stuff to get there. But the first two, you could definitely make an impact there if that's what you're used to. So this is just talking about if you want to grow up the economic, stair steps, this is a way to think about it and do it.
Yeah. I also want to hit really quickly on
Sure.
what's above that. It's the arrow with insecurity. Oh, back down just a little bit.
Oh,
It
right
was right
there.
above the
Yes.
stair steps. Right there, insecurity. So, we were just talking about, like, for in my instance or my example, I'm a communicator and I'm a visionary leader and strategist. So if I'm at that level and I'm operating at that level, then there's a certain amount of value that economically is assigned to that. Whereas, there's a lesser amount of economic value assigned to just, I don't say just, like, people that are at the implementer phase, which is exactly where I was
Right.
when I started my career. So if you are operating at the level of a communicator and a visionary, but you're entertaining accepting an opportunity that puts you back down to the implementer stage, the difference between the economic value of implementer and the economic value of communicator visionary, that is, and this is, you defined this for me, and this is super super important, that's your level
Yeah.
of insecurity. So if the gap there is $100,000 in your annual salary, that becomes your level of insecurity with yourself. And 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 that insecurity leads to, I think, a willingness to accept opportunities that don't give you the economic value that you are
Yeah.
worth and that you deserve.
Yeah.
And so true north is a big part of that analysis, and being able to understand and then communicate um, where you are with evaluating an opportunity against um, your true north, and where
Yeah.
you
And
are
I'm glad
going.
you with all my crazy drawings up there, like I'm like I get confused with my own scribble scratches. And so everybody knows that's watching. I know this is going to show up on Apple and Spotify, but this part of this drawing starts right here. It starts at the 150 and up, even though it goes into down here. So, but yeah, Katie's exactly right. So what I was saying is that like if you're, let's say that you're getting paid 150, $150,000, but the revenue generated from your work is $600,000. There is an insecurity gap of $450,000. So that is the amount that, and what you're paying for is what? Like if this is the insecurity gap, Katie, then what are people paying $450,000 for?
Well, they're paying $450,000 for some, you're helping
Right.
somebody
Yep.
else get
And it's
rich.
for you because it's security. So I am giving up 400. Yep. So I'm giving
Oh,
up
so yeah,
$450,000 so I can feel comfortable on my end. Right. And so when I
right,
look at this and show this to people, like if you really want to understand the insecurity gap, is what is making you insecure. Right. Maybe it's maybe you're in debt. Maybe that's making you insecure. Maybe you're not confident in your own abilities. Maybe you haven't spent time building the skills, and maybe you haven't take extra classes. And when I say classes, I don't mean like school, like going to get your master's degree. Those things are like not a great ROI if it's like something in the, I don't know, business kind of field, unless you're going into like a doctor, lawyer, where it needs skill specific. But for the most part, is what skills have you acquired that would give you more confidence, so therefore you were more secure in your economic value, that would reduce your insecurity gap. So maybe the company's still going to make
right,
600,000, but what if you built up your security and your confidence up to the communication and the vision level? So now you're earning not 150, but you're earning 300,000, and now the company isn't just making 600,000, maybe they're making 1.8 million. So it's a win-win, right? And that's okay. But maybe you're wanting to,
yeah,
maybe you want more of that pie, and you're thinking, if man, what if I was an outside consultant? Because I know companies, if they pay outside consultants, they don't pay them like employees, right? But what's the fear of the
right,
consultant? I'm not guaranteed job, right? So when we understand this, and
right,
that if we just understand that we can build confidence and skills, and we believe in ourselves, because we're only limited to what we currently believe and what level of skills we've built, is that we can go out and create so much value that the marketplace will pay us our economic value.
right. Yeah, so I think insecurity is also interesting to think of in that way, because like you just mentioned, well, in my example, I worked in state government for 18 years. And at the time, the thing I valued was security. I valued a defined benefit pension system. I valued a defined paycheck. So in terms of like financially, I valued that security, having somebody, withhold my taxes and pay for my health insurance. So there is a level of security there, but you have to be willing to embrace a bit of insecurity to leave the structure of that system like I did and
Hmm.
become a consultant. So insecurity, sometimes it's good to embrace that insecurity. And in this example, with the like the economic value, it's what level of insecurity are you willing to accept that is you either generating revenue for yourself or you helping generate
Yeah.
revenue for
And
someone
and I always
else.
tell people like each is okay. Just don't complain
Yes,
about what you've chosen by your either actions or non-actions, right? So if somebody says, "Well, they make so much money over there," I'm like, "Well, then go get some." Well, I can't. Why not? Because I don't have the skill set.
why
I'm
not?
not that person. I don't do this. I don't do that. Right. But that's the reason why they're making the money and you're not. So if you want to make that economic impact, that money, that you've got to go put in the time and the skills. Like John Maxwell says, you got to go do the did to do what I done so I could do the deal and do the thing. Right. You more or less what that means is you haven't done what I did. You haven't been through what I've been through. You haven't educated yourself like you educate yourself, but you want to show up and get paid because you feel like you deserve it. When in actuality, you haven't not yet created the economic value to earn it.
Or you haven't yet been able to
There you go.
define and articulate why you deserve
Right.
the economic value. And so I think for me, that was like, I knew that there was something bigger out there for me that I was being called to do. But I didn't know
Yeah.
how to define it. And so for me, being able to say, like, what gaps do I have in knowledge or skills? What do I have? What have I built that I can articulate as a transferable skill? And then what actions do I need to take to better fill in those gaps so that you have the confidence
Yeah.
to articulate, your higher level of
Right.
economic
Right.
value.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. And the way that I want to wrap it up, Katie, is like if you had, and I won't give you a number because sometimes if you put somebody on the spot and give me five, you're like, I don't know, I can't come up with five. But if I were to say, give me some like urgence, like if you were to urge people to do something, or if you was like, man, if you did these three things, two things, one thing, what would your message for people to be after hearing what we just talked about?
Hmm. I think I would start by saying, like, get to know yourself. Um, and start really, scheduling time for yourself to get to know yourself. So book time on your calendar to start going through some of these exercises, this mapping your resiliency where you know, put 10 things on spokes of a wheel that are important to you and then go through the process of evaluating your level of satisfaction in each of those areas versus the amount of time and energy that you're putting into each of those things. So I think that's, starting making time and developing a plan to get to know yourself is a really important first step to identifying what your true north is and setting
Mhm.
your vision for your life, your career, whatever that looks like, and then some identifying some specific
Mhm.
smart goals that you can start working towards, that help you move the needle on where you are versus your vision for the future and where you want to be. One thing I always say, another one of my life mottos is improvise,
Mhm.
adapt, and overcome. And, life never goes the way that we think it will go. So you might have a day, a week, a month, or a year in your life that just doesn't go according to plan. And you can either sit back and wallow in the discomfort, or you can embrace the suck and figure out how you move past that. And so improvising, and adapting to your circumstance, and then overcoming, just through some of the tools that
Mhm.
we've talked
All right.
about
Well, I
today.
appreciate it. And, Katie, I don't know if you're up to this challenge. And I know you and I are both like, I love this term from, oh man, I can't think of his name now, but he's the guy that took Quest to market. Oh man, I can't think of his name. But anyways, he calls everybody impactivist. He's like, so in the beginning of his podcast, he's like, hey, impactivists, right? That's his following. And so I do believe impactivist. Yeah.
Impact this. Okay. I'm writing this down.
Tom Bilyeu, that's his name. You'll love his podcast. And so Tom Bilyeu talks about being an impactivist. I do believe that we have an impactivist on our podcast with Katie. And so what
Oh,
I also would consider myself an impactivist, like people that are constantly trying to add value to the marketplace, the world, and people's lives. And so I'm going to throw something out there, and I don't know when or how this will work, but it popped into my head while we were doing this. Is what would it look like, Katie, if we did somehow jammed on a simple process to people could take steps, fill out a paper, a diagram, a Word doc, or whatever, like we did with a whiteboard. So it'd be a proverbial whiteboard, except a Word doc that they could go through and fill out to help them think
mhm.
through those things. Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
Katie's up for the challenge. I'm not saying that we're going to do it at any particular time soon because we don't know. We're both very going people, right? We are
We are
goers.
goers.
So, but I did want to throw that idea out while we're wrapping up. So,
Yeah, I have some resources that I could share, and we could definitely like walk through that on a podcast
okay.
in the
All
future.
right. Well, that's all we got for today. I do want to say I appreciate you, Katie. You're a badass, and I always enjoy having conversations with you. And I appreciate you being on my new podcast thing, whatever I'm trying to play with. And so all this is experimental for me, and I do appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you very much, and I value you as a friend and as a coach, and what was it?
Impact.
An impactivist. And yeah, I look forward to where we go from here. And I appreciate you having
All
me
right.
on. This was fun.
Bye.
Bye.